You're listening to Edging the Truth.
Welcome to another episode of Edging the Truth. This is episode 25. We are finishing up a year of podcasting, and our episode for today is MK Ultra. If you're not familiar with MK Ultra, it was a mind control program the CIA did in the 70s and 60s, and we're going to tell you all about it. With me, as always, is One Lung Low. That's below me. Next to me here is Brian, and below and to the left is Andy. We are talking for the first time about a not so much a conspiracy. It's definitely of the ilk of things that we like to talk about, but there's no debating this. So I think we're going to have a fun discussion today. I thought we would start out maybe just by talking a little bit about LSD in general. There's at least a few of us in this room that have had experience with LSD, if I'm not mistaken. I know at least 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, 3 out of 4. Yeah,
I only see one no.
Yeah, me. I'm adding to Brian. You raising
Right.
your hand? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
1 out of 7 people have chlamydia because I'm not raising my hand for that. So okay.
No.
Okay.
But that said, I feel like there's 3 out of the 4 of us can talk to actually having used LSD. And could you use it for mind control? With all the information that we know now, Brian, did you ever feel like someone could put you under mind control when you took LSD?
No.
Right.
If anything, there was no control. My mind was out of control. That's the purpose of LSD. Your mind is out of control. You seeing shit. You got colors. Your brain, electric brain bananas. Trying to get that lemonade. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a crazy time. You fucking make up words. Things are happening. But like controlled? No. Nope. Mm-mm. It was hard to control yourself. Like you just want to go to the park and hang out. Like there's nothing. There's nothing.
Well, we've seen Fudge in the we've hung out while Fudge has indulged in a little LSD.
You've seen in person. You conducted your own experiments for the purposes of the podcast.
I have witnessed the Fudgens at times.
Getting fudged.
Definitely no mind control going on there, right?
No, it's time and place for everything, and it's called college. I think that's where we all did that stuff, and it was like that. I think the college was mind controlling me more than any of the drugs. So
yeah. What about you, Fudge?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like LSD more so frees up your mind rather than kind of making you submissive. Anytime I've done it, usually it's just a grand old time. As long as you just don't think bad thoughts. Mm-hmm. You say, what's a bad thought? Well, your head's an orange and you want to peel it. Don't do that. I don't know. I think in my experience with it, I have never felt like somebody could control me while doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go fucking hang out at a park though. That seems kind of, what do you like sitting at?
Like go to the beach, go to the park, go like hang out.
You said park. You said park. You didn't say beach. Beach and park are very different.
I guess
when I hear
park or like Griffith Park, like
see
a nice
when
place where
like
you can do shit.
Yeah, when
Buffalo,
when I think park, I just think of Brian like going and sitting at like a picnic table, and there's just a playground next to him that he's just like
just looking like
too close to.
No.
Yeah,
you would. One Lung, as the resident non-psychedelic drug user in this crew, you and I watched the movie about MK Ultra the other night. What was your reaction to seeing all of the actual footage of what they were, because there was if you haven't, we'll talk about this more later in the episode, but there's a new movie out called MK Ultra. It's the reason we're talking about this this week. And the movie we watched was interesting because it included a lot of archival footage, newsreels, documentary footage from the 60s. What was your reaction to that and how they used it for the sake of mind control?
Yeah, well, I've been around some people that were on LSD, and then I also watched the movie with you guys, and never did I feel like, even watching it, that there was ever any sense of mind control. Rather, people's ability to be impressed upon was heightened, right? So you make a suggestion and they take that suggestion and go way further than they would ever go in their regular mind. And I think that that's more than anything. And that's not really mind control. It's just suggesting something. And I think that that's, more or less what LSD can do. Now, I've never been on LSD, so I don't know that that's what it is. But like when Andy mentions, you're an orange and you're going to go peel yourself. Like, did somebody tell that guy that, hey, your head looks like an orange? And then he just went, oh my goodness, I'm an orange. People are going to eat me, So just interesting to kind of watch and see. And then really it's scary to think that, like, depending on like the amounts that they were giving people were just way above anything that most people would take on as a fun time. They were giving them way more than what anybody would take. So
I'm glad you brought that up because I thought it might be nice. There's probably some viewers if you're viewing this, and if you're only listening to this, I encourage you to view this episode. I thought I would show what some LSD looks like on camera. There's a little bit right there. There's like almost 2 hits, and so by today's standards, in discussing with some folks, we're talking about like 100 micrograms. That's the unit of measurement. In the studies that we saw, it was 400 and 500. As a starting dosage for some of these people. You're talking about 4 and 5 hits of acid at once out of the gate. I don't know about you guys, but that seems like a lot to me.
Yeah. Also, I just want to clarify that where we are at in the United States, this is no longer against the law for us to have. So if you're on Twitch, watching this on Twitch, this is not against the law for us to have in our state. So
that is correct.
Just want to let you guys, let everybody know, nothing is out of whack here. We're good. Don't ban us.
Dude, everything's cool.
Everything's cool.
We're all good here. How are you?
We fucking got him. We got him.
Well, I think this is all a nice little pretext to the discussion about what MK Ultra was, because, as our topic for the day, again, as we said at the beginning, there's no debate. This has been proven. There's been, whistleblowers and a fact-finding mission by Congress and huge reports and all that kind of stuff. Now, this is where the conspiracy theorists probably like to jump in, as they did with the same process that happened with the Kennedy assassination, et cetera, 9/11 commission more recently. But that said, the story, at least as it was described in some of the history that I read, that again, we're talking about the infant years of the CIA. So the CIA is very new as a intelligence agency in America. We have a story where POWs are coming back from Korea and they are quote unquote brainwashed. They are espousing communist ideals, et cetera. Articles come out and a book and movie come out at this time about the Manchurian Candidate, the very much, based in reality idea that people were, basically being brought down to zero and then being re-imprinted with a new personality and thought process, et cetera. The question I want to pose to you guys is, and we all, I think we're all going to be in agreement. Anybody disagree with this statement that our government was a little fucked up for doing what they did? No one disagrees with that?
Good. Are you talking about then or now?
I'm talking about then. Yeah.
We still everything's.
Why not both?
So
yeah. Well, we're gonna get to now, as you saw. We're gonna get to now towards the end of the as we get to the end of the episode. I'm just talking about this time. At this time, I don't think anybody disagrees that experimenting and giving LSD to unwitting citizens against their consent or without their knowledge is pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not only part of this story, right? These things happened in mental institutions under false pretexts in many cases. There were setups, sting operations set up with prostitutes, where prostitutes would bring Johns back to a safe house, and the safe house would have a two-way mirror, and the CIA would be behind the mirror filming it, and they'd give the John the LSD and see what would happen. All of this is very, very, very sketchy. If the government had come to me and said, "Hey, Red, do you want to take some LSD for a test and we'll give you a bunch of money?" I mean, I would have said yes, right? Like, I think they could have probably found plenty of volunteers to test LSD, especially as the counterculture movement moved on in the 60s, right? And which
especially
a lot
those
of
dirty hippies.
Exactly. It becomes, the Timothy Leary. I happen to have right here one of the records that really spawned the LSD movement, Timothy Leary's record on LSD. This was a big thing, and I think because it was new, and its use was new, there were a lot of people who thought they had the right reasoning behind it. I want to start with Fudge. Fudge, what do you think about the tactic? What do you think about the abandonment of the tactic, at least then? And what's your gut reaction to the existence? There's the fact that this thing happened and the government more or less admitted to it, even though they kind of tried to say, well, we had good intentions.
I mean, shocker, the U.S. government did something fucking atrocious. It's shady. They weren't supposed to do. So it was more so, at least in my opinion, the reason they did this, it was the height of the war. They're like you said, Red, the POWs are coming back, and what they said they were brainwashed. I'm sure. Basically, these guys are coming back. They're saying all this communist rhetoric and stuff like that, admitting to stuff that they did that they weren't supposed to do. And that kind of scared, the higher ups in the U.S. government. They're like, all right, we got to figure this out. Like, they're using some type of, biological warfare over there that we need to figure out, and we need to start using because we need to protect ourselves. It was like LSD was just getting introduced. It was brand new to the United States. They actually flew, one of the videos I watched, they flew 2 U.S. agents over to like Switzerland or something, and they bought enough fucking LSD to dose half of the American population at the time. So they're bringing this back with every intent. Like I said, they're thinking they can use this and see, if it can be used to, brainwash people, control people. Really, what it was so new, they didn't know what it was. They just had to test it, just kind of to see, what was going to happen. And it's interesting you said the hippie movement. The U.S. government started the hippie movement by bringing this shit over here and introducing it to these people. Famous murderers have been said, like the Unabomber was apparently part of this. Charles Manson was apparently part of MK Ultra. Numerous other people, but I don't know. I mean, it all tracks for me. I believe this 100%. I mean, I know it's true, like you said, Red. But it got a lot more fucked up than just dosing people with a bunch of LSD. They were putting people into insulin comas, pumping people with, incredible amounts of electric shock, like 2-3 times the normal, what you're supposed to do, leaving people in comas for up to 3 months, strapping football helmets to their head with recorders, and basically what you said, just trying to rebuild people's personalities. Just incredibly fucked up shit. Basically what the U.S. government wanted to do, they wanted to have somebody, they wanted to control somebody, have them go, complete a mission, whether that's murder or do something, and then wake up the next morning and not remember what it was. So that's kind of, so this went on from, I believe, 53 to they said 73. They bullshit. The two guys that were running the program, when they left the CIA, they ordered all of the documents to be destroyed and burned because they knew, if that got out, it was going to be a huge scandal. Somehow, I think there were some financial records or something that was left over that were stumbled upon. There was a whistleblower that was a part of the program. A bunch of people up in Canada came out about
Canada
their
shit was real rough.
Yeah. Which that feels like it could be a whole episode by itself. And then, of course, Red, you talked about the bringing prostitutes that were hired by the CIA. So CIA prostitutes bringing guys back to these. There was, apartments. It was in like New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles. They were set up to look like brothels, or there were even other ones that, they were set up to look like hippie, like hangouts and communes where they would have people grow their hair out, look like hippies, encourage people to come back and just dose the fuck out of them with LSD. But the whole prostitute thing, Operation Midnight Climax.
Yes,
what a name. What a name. So I mean, my initial gut reaction is it's pretty fucked up. Like, I was pretty disturbed, especially when watching the stuff about Canada. But it's even crazier that they were just like dosing just regular people out in the public who had no idea at all. But yeah, that's kind of my initial take on it.
Yeah, I feel like seeing the testimony of the survivors of that mental hospital in Canada was really hard to watch. And again, if you're listening, we encourage you to join our Discord. We'll tell you all about how to do that at the end of the episode, and you can find links on our website. But our Discord has all the resources that we watch to prep for the show, for the most part. So if there's something that you want to see that we're talking about, you can see the links and watch them all there. One Lung, let's head to you about this. You have some of the context of the movie too. Did this make you feel gross about our government? Did it make you feel like they were being brave? What did it make you feel about when you heard about this whole thing and kind of started putting the picture together?
Yeah, it definitely it was terrible, and it made me feel terrible. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm not proud of our government for doing, and that's definitely one of them. And a piece that Andy didn't mention, and while everything he mentioned is terrible and was terrible, there was also the animals piece. Like, they did a lot of tests on animals, and like,
I forgot about the bulls.
I watched that, and like, as much as like you see the human side, and it's like, man, that's terrible. Like, the animals are just innocent, and it's like, it's so hard to watch that.
They're just tripping balls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, like the bull would be headed towards the person. They would, like, pretty much the implant that they had, and just fall on the ground, and it's just like brutal, right?
Yeah.
And you listen to that. You listen to all of the people talk about being in Canada and everything that happened in Canada, and you watch the movie and you listen to the survivors talk about, what they went through here, and it's just, it's really, it's actually amazing that they were able to get away with so much of it before it was shut down. Like, there was so much done before it was caught on to, and
oh yeah,
it's really amazing that it was on such a wide scale, and it wasn't caught prior to that. So yeah, definitely terrible.
I feel like that's one of the things that I took the most from the testimony, the interviews with the survivors of this mental institution, was that they were being treated for such innocuous things. One guy was being treated for asthma.
Yeah.
And you're going, what? Like, so you're administering LSD under the, like, come on. Like, at the very least, have it be, and I think that was one of the things that was interesting to watch in this drama that we watched, is that the psychiatrist, who's the main character, he is trying to do it from a place of he's trying to pick the proper subjects that have legitimate psychological problems, that he legitimately feels that this drug could help them, and when he begins to realize that it's off the rails, that's of course when it.
Well, I think it takes.
But how do you get out of that? I mean, we see.
And the other piece of it is, like, who knows? LSD could have done something good for some of those people, right? But the way that they went about doing it, number one, is terrible. Like the people that were part of the test didn't know that they were being part of this test, right?
Yeah.
The amount of the drug that they were giving the people was astronomical based on, like, if you look at what a normal person would take on a recreational level is so tiny. They were giving them like full vials of this stuff.
Yeah, way too much.
Way too much.
Well, and they didn't know.
But like you said, the guy that was the main character was coming at a place of science and helping somebody. At one point during the movie, they talked about, they gave the Hippocratic Oath, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, I'm not to do harm to people. And they really didn't feel like they were doing harm until he got to that certain point. And he was like, whoa, this is not on the up and up. And it's just mind boggling,
Yeah, Brian, do you have a differing opinion on this, or does this also make you feel scuzzy?
Well, first of all, I'll say, when we first announced this episode, and I was like, MK Ultra, I'm like, this is so great because we were about to talk about the new Mortal Kombat game, and I was so excited for that. And I went and played a bunch of hours of Mortal Kombat just to get ready to come back and be like, who wants some of this, bitches? And I come back and I'm like, oh, that's not what this is about.
Yeah, you're right.
But I would just say, are we just?
Well,
doing
the government was
now?
like, finish them.
Are we just doing truth now? Have we gone away from the edge? We're just doing the truth.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this story is we're never going to know the full truth, and I think that's what's interesting about it. We know what the government has allowed us to know, and that's about it. So we're still left up to our devices.
All I know is CIA
whose idea was this?
You know what I'm saying? I just know about CIA prostitutes. And let
me
I
meant the government.
Oh yes,
the government does love prostitutes. I will say that that's been proven over and over again. I will say that One Lung may have not done the LSDs, but he has definitely done a lot of harder drugs with all his surgeries and whatnot. I'm sure he has hallucinated some better stuff than we've hallucinated with all this.
For sure.
He's taken a lot of drugs in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, he knows the vibe. But did you ever feel like you were going to be mind controlled at that time? No.
Well, so I think that the closest, and honestly, the closest piece to ever feeling like out of my mind that I ever did was actually when I was in a coma. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about. Like, you kind of are in and out of consciousness a little bit, and like you kind of hear things around you, but then like you totally feel like you're not even there, and like you're out of body. Like that's the drugs that I've been on for like pain and stuff. Like I actually have a very high tolerance to pain, so I didn't really ever get the really, really good pain meds. Like I was never on Dilaudid or anything like that.
No good meds and alcohol. I get it. But well, I mean, I'll just say, as for the government stuff, yeah, our government does a lot of shady shit. Our government is trying to make a super soldier serum right now. I'm not like Marvel style, like legit. Like trying to make robot fucking exosuits, like all that stuff. I guess the government just does everything, and government always pushes it, especially at this time with the communist China, the Red Scare, all that stuff. People were still talking about fucking, potential commies all over the place, and just it was just a very kind of crazy time. And mind control is definitely a worrisome thing, especially as we were breaking out of the 60s into the 70s, and like people were starting to get a little more open, stuff loosening up and everything. So it's just like I feel like this was another thing where the government's like, oh, it would actually from both sides. Oh, maybe we can control these people so they don't get so loose, And then on the flip side, it's like, but we don't want anybody to make sure nobody else can control them either. And the government, I mean, private companies, I mean, it's almost the same as testing cosmetics on animals. I feel like it's almost like they were almost treated the same. It's just like they were kind of nothing. It was like, all right, let's get some more animals in here. That's kind of the whole way it was done. It was just like any other testing. They were being scientific about it, and at the same time not scientific about it, because but that's testing. And that's people that just trying to get steady results and keep their grant money going,
Yeah, which was very much, I think the driving force for a lot of people, and that was the way that the story was couched in the movie we watched. That this was a guy who was losing his funding.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Underlyingly,
needed the money.
There's a story about a government contract. That is literally what this is a story about.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, it's just another government contract, and they contract to companies all the time. Your sort of Blackwaters, all of your defense contractors or people. There's companies we don't even know the name of that are making millions from the government doing something that they don't tell us about. So, I mean, it's just, it's truth. We know it happened. Just how bad it is not the thing. But yeah, this is we are fully climaxed this week. We are full truth.
And I think it's also interesting too that, like, to put this in context, this is during the Kennedy years, which we think of as being, yes, on the one hand, shady and all those sorts of things. But I think a lot of people saw Kennedy coming into the presidency as being a very positive and open and enlightening kind of thing for government in America. He was so young and he was so altruistic and seemed to be about so many things that were for the people. And then to have that in retrospect now be part of that legacy is interesting and really puts it in a different light, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That really leads me into sort of the next area of discussion I wanted to have, which is how this has certainly leaked into popular culture. At the time, there was an article written that used the phrase "the Manchurian Candidate" in its title. That was also then now borrowed to become part of this very famous book, The Manchurian Candidate, which was adapted into a movie twice. I think most famously we think of the Frank Sinatra version, but maybe if you're younger, you think of the new one with, I think it's Liv Schreiber and Denzel. But that's that premise, and again now we're seeing it come back into the movies today. We are in a place now where we're in a lot of distrust of government again. Our most recent president made off with many classified documents. And that doesn't seem shady at all to some people for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I think no matter what party you're a part of, that's pretty dirtbag behavior. And again, the fact that we're talking about it again in popular culture, I think, is the most interesting part. Let's go to probably the biggest movie guy besides myself in this room, and that's Brian, the man who quotes movies at least once an episode. Manchurian Candidate. Did you watch either of those movies? Have you seen either of those movies?
Yes, I have.
And did you watch it and go, they're doing that shit? That's happening. That's really happening.
Meh. I mean, I read the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read the book before I saw the movies.
Which apparently was largely plagiarized. I just found out in researching the episode today. I didn't know that either.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Fudge? Are you a believer in any of this shit via movies? Have you seen any movies that where you were like, there's been multiple movies over the last 20 years, let's say, where it's about like a killer who is brainwashed and they wake up and they've had, they got to go do a mission or whatever. And they're in another person's body or they're in another person's brain, or it's, it's sci-fi and all that sort of stuff, but it's still of this kind of ilk.
Yeah. First thing that comes to mind would be Winter Soldier and Captain America. He totally didn't know what he was doing. I feel like in the early 2010s, wasn't there a comedy that came out called MK Ultra with Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart?
Ooh, I don't know. It might have been. It's funny you bring up the Winter Soldier. That's probably as close as anything to what we're talking about, right? Like the idea of taking someone's personality, stripping it down to nothing, and re-imprinting it in a way that you can control. And
okay, yeah. So it came out in 2015. It's called American Ultra.
American Ultra. I remember that. Yes. Was that related to this? Was that about this story?
Stoner who lives in the Sleepy Hollow convenience store.
Let's get the read the
I was just saying, good content.
Let me tell you. I think a movie. I think it's most true about mind control. Evil Dead. Dead. I think that movie really happened. I think there's a book Necronomicon out there. I think Bruce Campbell was right all along. He split into two people. Remember, that was the whole thing.
You think we're gonna find it one day?
Yeah. So it's yes, it's like this. He was part of he was part of some sort of ultra program that he doesn't know about. He finds two dudes that are like trying to break into his car. They attack him. His training activates, and then he's like, "What the fuck?" He's like a stoner,
He's a sleeper agent kind of.
Kind of thing.
I like it. Well, yeah. I mean, this isn't going away. What about you, One Lung?
I definitely think that it's probably there's stuff like this that's done.
I mean, we watched the movie together, the new MK Ultra movie. Give us your review. This wasn't a movie that you probably would have watched if we hadn't watched it for the show. Number one. So with that in mind, we both walked away from this movie being like, this was much better than we thought.
Yeah, 100%.
Tell people why they should see this movie. Again, we're not sponsored by this movie or whoever's putting it out. We just happened to watch it. But if you think people should watch it, tell them why.
Well, I think that first off, you got to realize it is a fictional based retelling of true events. So it is, highly, dramatized and all that. However, there are plenty of real news clippings, real news footage, even not news footage, just footage, period, of the actual events at the time. And it's very interesting, especially if you're history based, like you like history. It's very interesting to watch. And then there is a portion of the story that, although it's dramatized, is true. It's based on true events. And so it's very much a, bless you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a, why are you laughing, Fudge? Anyway, I just think it's interesting to watch from that story. Plus, it's not a bad movie. It was suspenseful at times. There was definitely some things that happened in the movie that you're like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing it? You're vocal, like, don't do that. Come on, you're an idiot. Don't do that, And so it's kind of fun to watch. I think watching it with a group of people that are like-minded, that are like, like history and stuff, and you can kind of banter during the movie, made it a lot more fun. But definitely it's worth a watch. I mean, it's good. It's not great, but it's good.
Well, and I think the thing I enjoyed about it is that it did depict both sides of this story / debate, if there is any debate. We're presented with very scuzzy CIA people. We're presented with them right out of the gate, and they are messed up, and they are delinquents, and they are right there. Our CIA people were not very quote unquote good people. And at the same time, we're presented with a doctor who really was trying to use the tools at his disposal to help some people. I think it's really different too than the way it's presented in movies like The Manchurian Candidate, where it's we don't get to see it from the inside. We're only seeing the after effect. We're seeing the product of what the movie we just watched was about being put into effect. Well, I think this sort of brings me to sort of our last little area of discussion, and we alluded a little bit to it earlier in that while this was an era of history and roughly a 20-year at hopefully at most operation, we're well aware that the CIA has continued to develop and experiment and fine-tune psychological warfare techniques. I think that for those of us in here, probably the most well-known concept of that is waterboarding, a word we would not know in all likelihood if it weren't for the CIA and war. And we've now seen it in multiple movies. We're seeing it in movies that have nothing to do with the Iraq War and have nothing to do with the CIA. It is now a accepted interrogation and torture and psychological warfare technique. Is there any doubt in your mind that our government is out there doing something equally as shady right now in the interest of these things? Brian, you said where we know they're trying to develop super soldier serums. We know they're doing exosuits. We know all of these things that are happening in terms of traditional kinds of warfare. But what about the psychological warfare part? What do you think, One Lung? Is our government under our current president let's keep it in context to now. Is our current government engaged in this kind of stuff today?
100%.
100%.
100%. Like, I don't know that it's waterboarding. They might have moved on from that, but I still think that is probably used. And I don't know that it's, I am of the mind that, like, sometimes the boss doesn't know everything that's going on, and I think that there's once it gets to that level, it's a much broader scope. Like, hey, we got the information for you. And it's kind of like a, hey, don't tell me how you got it kind of thing.
That's exactly right.
And but even in the movie that we watched the other day, you saw in the range of characters that were part of the test, there were people inside administering the test that were okay people that had, good intentions. Mm-hmm. And you had people in that group that were just terrible people. And I think that when you have that situation, no matter if the government is like, oh, we're going to stop those kind of practices, you have somebody in that chain of command that's like, oh, no, we're still going to do that. And so I think that there's still that going on. And I mean, even in our prison system today, like, we have bad guards and, whatnot. So I think that even if the president isn't aware that it's going on, I think it's still going on. Yeah. And I think that you have countries around the world that are putting practices into play that are even further worse than what we can even imagine, I think of that movie, The Red Sparrow.
Yes.
Where they are, spies and they're brainwashed, and then all of a sudden they just get put back into service, and just that kind of stuff. And that's totally mind-blowing. And I don't know that the U.S. isn't doing something like that,
You would hope that if other countries, our enemies, are doing these things, that our government would at least be trying to figure out a way to address it in a way
and combat it, at least.
To be defensive. And again, when I wrote my show notes for talking about why MK Ultra was created, I wrote it down as defense against the dark arts, because I felt like that might be a way to couch the conversation that keeps it in a place of being defensive, that we're doing this as a defensive thing, not as an offensive thing.
That
doesn't justify it. Yeah, certainly still doesn't justify it or any of those kinds of things. But I think it does put it in a little bit different perspective, that in the same way, the space race, we had to beat the Russians, right? It was, and they were ahead of us. They were definitely ahead of us. And so
we spent millions of dollars to create a pen that could write in space.
Yes.
They used a pencil.
Yes. Fudge, you're the young one of this group, maybe the least jaded by our government at this point, maybe the most. What do you think? Are there MK Ultra type programs happening today?
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like every country in the world is doing this at this point, especially the ones that are, have the most power. I think I don't ever believe that this program really ended, whether they're doing the exact same shit that they were doing in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I don't think so. I think it evolved over time, as everything does. I think they found kind of what worked and what didn't. I mean, for me, I go back to this one thing I found about an airman that was stationed at the Lackland Air Force Base in Texas that got charged for a murder. So there was like a heat wave or something, or the power outage or something, and this family of four, the parents brought their two kids down to the bar with them. It was a boy and a girl, let them play out in the parking lot. The girl mysteriously disappears. They send out a search party for her, and they're looking around, and this guy walks out of the bushes, shirtless. He's got scratches all over him. and he has like no recollection of what just happened. They kind of go back to where he just came out, and they find the body of the girl. She'd been raped and murdered by this guy, but he has absolutely no recollection of what had been happened. This guy was, a member of the Air Force, by all accounts, a stand-up guy. He had multiple kids himself. The interesting part about this and how it connects, so he had been seen at the Lackland psychiatric ward because he had severe migraines, like really bad. So he was being treated there. The head psychiatrist at that facility was Louis Joyland West, who was one of the main psychiatrists that was kind of behind this whole thing as far as the MK Ultra and these experiments that were going on. And this guy is believed to potentially be one of, he was one of these guys' patients. So was this like an MK Ultras type situation where he truly didn't remember what had happened? Either way, it's awful. But it could have just been a cop out, saying I don't remember, I don't have any recollection. But his wife and mother were reported as saying that, in the weeks kind of leading up to it, he had just came back to the house and acted like he really didn't know them, didn't recognize them at all. In the courtroom during the trial, he didn't acknowledge them at all. It was almost as if like he was unaware of anybody else there. So I think there's shit like this going on today. I don't think they're necessarily using LSD, like I said. Yeah. I think there's some other tactics that have evolved, and I don't think it's just happening here. I think we have foreign agents everywhere doing shit, because they did back in the 60s and 70s as well. There wasn't just the U.S. and Canada where these experiments were going down. So I 100% believe that, because at the end of the day, they're not trying to. That's the mindset here in America, right? We're number one. We're the best. They're not trying to get.
Let's just think about the amount of developments that have happened in the pharmaceutical industry over the last 50 years since the height of this. The antipsychotic drugs, any kind of drug that will sedate. Think of all the developments that have happened there. He could have been on all kinds of different stuff that would have just make him sit there and drool and not acknowledge people. I think that's far more likely also because we're now used to those things in popular, like we're used to medication, like we live in a medicated culture, so seeing that kind of thing is not something that would make us go, oh, something is wrong with this picture. No, you see somebody who's zoned out on drugs, you go, yeah, that's what's going on. You just accept it.
This happened like back in the 50s. Like,
oh, no, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying by comparison now, we wouldn't even look twice at some, we wouldn't think twice about being like that, especially if they're, coming out of if they've been in prison and when they're coming into trial and they've been problematic, they've been sedated, they've been given something, to not act out. If now we're talking adding the military involved in all this, and we know they were definitely involved. Brian, any doubt in your mind about this? I feel like
all I'm going to say is plausible deniability. You know what I'm saying? It's just that is our government. There's so much stuff going on in the government. Plus, the government, in general, is such a big thing spread across so many facets of our lives and all that stuff that, they're doing shit we can't even think about. The studies, all the different stuff. Colleges all over America do government studies for them. That's some people's master's thesis is a government study.
I get emails all the time about joining them.
They're always doing that shit. So it's that I 100% believe it. I think that like I said, this is the week of truth. This is the truth. I think yes. I don't think there's any conspiracy to know that our government is doing all kinds of stuff, and in the end, they're doing it for two reasons. They're doing it to defend ourselves against the dark arts, as you say, from our enemies, but on the flip side, to be able to also use it against the enemies at the same time. How to defend it and then how to throw it back. Well, that's like our whole. That's America.
Yep.
America, fuck yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And it keeps coming back around, the Bourne Identity maybe is the one that I really grasped onto, loving as reading it as a book, and then when the movies came out, just going, yeah, well, this is the height of that. This is a guy who doesn't know who he is anymore. His brain has basically been brought to zero, and he's been re-imprinted with the name of Jason Bourne and the identity of that and all those sorts of things. And that's a very present day story that we feel like when we watch it could be real. It doesn't take a lot to suspend the disbelief, especially once we, in that franchise, bring in the fact that there's these other guys in training, the Jeremy Renner one, and he's taking some pills, clearly taking pills. We saw him taking the reds. I'm down on low on my blues and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm just as convinced as you guys are. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our discussion of MK Ultra. Before we get out of here, Fudge, do you want to tell the folks what our next episode is?
Next episode, 1 year anniversary of Edging the Truth, hosted by yours truly. I'm going to bring the energy. I hope you guys do too. We're going to be live streaming it. We're going to be recapping some of our favorite moments, some of our favorite episodes from the past year. Yeah, super excited. Looking forward to it. So look out for that. Thanks everybody for joining us today, or tonight, I should say. We really, really appreciate it. Here's to another year of episodes, another year of growth, and yeah, looking forward to it.
It's going to be a fun episode. We're gonna debut a new piece of merch, a 1 year anniversary merch. We're gonna give away some stuff. So if you tune in live, you might win something for free. We would love for you to be a part of this show. As always, with social media, you can post your comments anywhere on any of our posts. We can all see that stuff, but our preferred method is for you to call our voicemail so that we can actually play you in the episode. Call us at 917-979-6071. Again, that's 917-979-6071. Tell us your favorite podcast moment from the last year. We'd just love to hear what you thought was your favorite moment from these 25 episodes. And we'd love to play it. We'd love to play your voicemail, and we'd love to play that clip. Again, we mentioned earlier, we do have merch for sale, shop.edgingthetruth.com. We do have shirts and hats and all that kind of stuff. And we will have a special design for our 25th anniversary, or our 26th episode and 1 year anniversary. But just let us know how you feel. We don't care if you buy the stuff, but we would love for you to call. We would love to get your message in our 1 year anniversary show and immortalize everything that we've done here. Who knows how many more years it will happen. Well, on behalf of Brian, let me before I do that, let me mention one more time. You can find us everywhere at edgingthetruth.com. It has links to our Twitter, our Instagram, our YouTube, our Facebook, our TikTok. You can follow us on all those platforms. Of course, we are also doing this live on Twitch. You can follow us there. And of course, visit edgingthetruth.com if you have not yet. Lots of great resources, links to our Discord, including that, and also that voicemail line. So on behalf of Andy, One Lung, and Brian, I'm Dave. You've been listening to Edging the Truth, episode 25 on MK Ultra. We'll see you next time for our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
Big throbbing masculine cock.
I just realized he wasn't wearing a mask.
Visit edgingthetruth.com for more information and links to all our social media and podcast directories.